Nicola Sturgeon today will face another round of grilling at the Scottish COVID inquiry today. The proceedings will investigate the Scottish Parliament's devolved strategic response to the pandemic.
The inquiry is expected to be especially scrutinising of Sturgeon's record-keeping and usage of informal channels, such as WhatsApp, in relation to their response to the crisis.
Earlier, we spoke to the Shadow Health Secretary to Scotland, Dr Sandesh Gillane, who says people deserve to know what went on.
Ultimately, we need to know why a decision was made. In the UK, in England, all messages have been passed over. You've got hundreds of thousands of messages, and you can see, and you might not like it, but you can see how decisions were arrived at. And that's important because the point of the COVID inquiry is to learn, is to try to find out what happened, how it happened, and learn lessons.
Well, joining us now from Edinburgh is John Boothman from the Sunday Times. John, a very good morning. It's going to be a busy day for you. Tell us, what are the questions that we're expected to be answered today?
I think we're going to hear quite a lot, as you've just heard about those messages, how ministers destroyed those messages. Nicola Sturgeon's going to be questioned on that. You will remember that she guaranteed to the relatives of those people who died during the pandemic that she would provide all her emails, all her WhatsApps, all her private emails. Nicola Sturgeon said she would do that, and already it's emerged during the inquiry itself that, well, she deleted lots of them. The fact is, other ministers have done the same, as was admitted by the Deputy First Minister yesterday. I think we'll hear a lot about that. We'll hear some stuff about relations with the UK government. We've already seen messages provided by other people where Nicola Sturgeon used some colourful language, for example, about the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, describing him as a expletive deletive clown. I think on more substantial issues about what happened in discharging patients into care homes without testing. That's going to be covered, about how decisions were arrived at in relation to the closure of schools. We heard yesterday about the highly centralised nature of the government in Scotland, where Nicola Sturgeon and her deputy were the two people who decided to close schools in Scotland without reference to cabinet. And I think we're also going to just hear a lot also about the relations between the UK government and the Scottish government, where everybody so far has described them as constructive, but there were clearly, you mentioned Brexit earlier, in a post-Brexit environment where two governments had different positions on Brexit and have different positions in relation to independence. There were clearly some tensions. So Nicola Sturgeon has a full day of testimony, starts at 10 o'clock, and a lot of questions to answer.
There have been suggestions, John, that the Scottish Government sought to try and create a political fault line between themselves and the Westminster Government in order just to create difference, that they could be seen to be doing something different from the Westminster Government, rather than actually follow the science and do the right thing. Is there any merit in that allegation?
I think that's been quite a big theme of the past couple of weeks. This is day 11. We heard Michael Gove talk about that on Monday, the fact that there were whole-scale differences in the approach that the Scottish Government wanted to take. Now, were these questions about their strive for independence, where they are, as you say, just to emphasise difference? I think that's something that Nicola Sturgeon is really going to answer today. You know, the other big difference that we've seen in Scotland is that despite the fact that Nicola Sturgeon, I think, is acknowledged as being a hugely better communicator during the pandemic, had huge approval ratings, much better than approval ratings across the UK for UK government ministers, including Boris Johnson. The fact is, the outcomes at the end of the day, in terms of the number of people who died in care homes and the number of people who died more generally during the pandemic, were really broadly the same. So despite what looked like and what were perceived differences in approach, the outcomes weren't really very different at all. And again, I think she's going to be asked about that today.
One of the big challenges, John, in trying to scrutinise how they made decisions is that what the inquiry has revealed is we don't have kind of documented minutes of some of those crucial meetings. It looks like, and this is quite similar to what we've seen when the COVID inquiry was taking place and cabinet ministers in the UK, in England were being questioned, is that so much of this was about the methodology, about how they tried to make decisions, just as important as the decisions they were making.
Look, the relatives of people who died during the pandemic have been, from the very beginning of the inquiry, and there's a separate inquiry also in Scotland going on, have really emphasised that they need to see these messages. One of the other big themes is the absence of minutes of utterly crucial meetings that took place within the Scottish Government, what were called Gold Command meetings between selected ministers and government top officials, civil servants, took place before cabinet meetings. No minutes exist of these and none were kept. And astonishingly yesterday, Kate Forbes, who as the finance minister in the Scottish Government, probably the third most powerful minister in the government, revealed that she didn't even know of the existence of these Gold Command meetings, never mind about the minutes of the meetings themselves. She said she was surprised that no minutes been kept, but the fact is, in the early days of her in that job, she wasn't even invited to the meetings.
John Boothman from the Sunday Times, thank you very much indeed.